Imagine you are standing in a field at 3 in the morning. The air is cold enough that you can see your breath, and the world feels perfectly, deceptively still. You look up at the stars, expecting the same ancient patterns your ancestors saw, but something has changed. There is a new shadow moving against the velvet black, a ghost in the machine of the heavens. It is called 3I Atlas. It was officially logged by the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System on July 14th, 2025. But here is the thing that should keep every astronomer on Earth awake in their swivel chairs. Before the public sensors even flickered, a cluster of private satellites, owned by names you recognize from the Forbes list, had already adjusted their orbits to face it. They didn't wait for a press release. They moved as if they were expecting a guest. The official narrative tells us this is an interstellar object, a rogue traveler from a distant star system passing through our neighborhood at 64 kilometers per second. It is the third of its kind, following the path of Oumuamua and Borisov. But 3I Atlas is behaving with a strange, quiet dignity that defies standard physics. On August 2nd, 2025, an independent research team at the University of Hawaii noticed a deceleration that cannot be explained by solar radiation pressure or outgassing. It is slowing down, not because it is hitting something, but as if it is choosing to arrive. Now, consider the impossibility of the billionaire response. Within 48 hours of the July discovery, SpaceX launched a payload described only as global connectivity enhancements. However, amateur radio enthusiasts tracked the signal. It wasn't pointing down at your phone, it was pointing up, directly at the coordinates of 3I Atlas. Then there is the matter of the private observatories in the Atacama Desert. While NASA was busy filing paperwork, these high-tech fortresses, funded by the ultra-rich, went into total data blackout. Why would a private citizen need a deeper look at a rock than the government? Unless, of course, they know it isn't just a rock. What if the race to the stars was never about saving humanity from climate change? What if the frantic accumulation of wealth over the last decade was actually a frantic accumulation of resources for a singular event? We are seeing the privatization of the first contact. If 3I Atlas holds a secret, it won't be shared in a televised briefing. It will be bought, sold, and kept behind a paywall that only the gods of industry can afford. This feels like a memory from a time before we had names for the planets. The Sumerian tablets speak of the winged disk, a visitor that returns on a cycle of thousands of years to check the progress of the garden. Perhaps we are not the gardeners, perhaps we are the crop. We have spent centuries looking for signals from the deep, but we forgot that a signal can be physical. It can be a craft. It can be an observation post that has finally decided to reveal itself because we have finally reached a level of technology worth measuring. You are lying there now, perhaps in a warm bed in a quiet city, while the most significant event in human history is being tracked by people who view you as a consumer, not a citizen. You might think you are insignificant in this cosmic chess match, but here is why you are wrong. You are the witness. Your attention is the only thing that gives this mystery weight. Take a deep breath. Feel the gravity of the Earth holding you safe, while the sky above becomes a private gallery for the elite. If you enjoy these deep explorations in space, consider subscribing or hitting the like button. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to make content like this. But this is where it gets dark. The tracking data suggests that 3I Atlas isn't just passing through. It is entering a stable resonance with Earth's orbit. We are being watched by a guest that has no intention of leaving. But that was only one theory. There is another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. The evidence is deepening, and with it, the silence grows more profound. On September 12, 2025, a leaked internal memo from a prominent aerospace firm suggested that 3I Atlas has a surface temperature that remains constant at 22 degrees Celsius, regardless of its distance from the Sun. In the cold vacuum of space, such a feat is a thermal impossibility. It suggests an internal power source. It suggests life. Or at least, it suggests a very expensive climate control system. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. If an object maintains a steady room temperature while bathed in the radiation of the Sun, and then maintains that same temperature as it retreats into the shadows of the outer planets, it is not reacting to its environment. It is regulating it. It is a home. Now, you could argue that this is simply a calibration error in our infrared sensors. But when 3 different private observatories, each funded by a competing billionaire, all record the same 22-degree signature, and then immediately classify those findings as corporate secrets, the error isn't in the math. The error is in our assumption that we are being told the truth. Dr. Jacqueline McClary at Northeastern University was one of the first to point out that the trajectory of 3I Atlas perfectly mimics a gravity assist maneuver that would bring it into a long-term parking orbit by October 29, 2025. She called it a curious coincidence. But as we know, in the world of high-stakes orbital mechanics, those 2 words are doing a lot of work. Imagine the logistics required to track a ghost. While NASA's public budget is debated in halls of stone and red tape, the private sector has been building a secondary, invisible infrastructure. Since July 2025, the number of private launches has tripled. We were told these rockets were carrying simple communication satellites. But the telemetry tells a different story. These payloads are not spreading out to cover the Earth. They are clustering. They are forming a synthetic aperture, a massive mechanical eye that spans thousands of kilometers of space, all focused on a single coordinate. They are not looking for more customers. They are looking for the owner of that 22-degree signal. It's an unfortunate timing for the public's right to know. Those 2 words doing a lot of work once again. As 3I Atlas approached its closest point to Earth in late September, a series of peculiar outages struck the global astronomical community. Large telescopes in Hawaii and Chile reported unexpected software updates that lasted for days. By the time the lenses were clear, the object had moved. But it hadn't just moved, it had changed. Amateur trackers, using home-built kits in their backyards, noticed that the light curve of 3I Atlas had become rhythmic. It was blinking, not like a star, but like a lighthouse. Consider the implications of a private individual owning the first definitive proof of non-human technology. If you were a man who already owned the means of transport, the means of communication, and the means of digital currency, what is the only thing left to acquire? You would want to own the narrative of our place in the universe. You would want to be the one who greets the guest at the door, ensuring that whatever they brought, be it knowledge, energy, or a warning, is filtered through your fingers first. This brings us to the deep sky protocols. In August 2025, a quiet meeting took place in a valley in Wyoming, attended by the heads of 3 major tech conglomerates, and 2 former directors of national intelligence. The agenda was listed as future resource allocation, but the timestamps of the meeting align perfectly with a massive energy burst detected coming from the direction of 3I Atlas. It seems the visitor didn't just arrive, it announced itself, and only the people with the right receivers were listening. You might think that such a conspiracy is too large to keep quiet, but secrets don't need to be hidden in vaults to remain secret. They just need to be made boring. While the media cycle was filled with the usual noise of politics and celebrity, the reality of 3I Atlas was buried in technical papers and paywalled journals. The billionaires didn't have to hide the truth. They just had to make it too expensive and too complicated for the average person to care about. They are betting on your exhaustion. They are betting that by the time you realize the sky has changed, they will already own the horizon. Let me back up, because to understand the depth of this evidence, we have to look at the chemistry. In October 2025, a private probe, allegedly launched to study lunar ice, made a navigational error that brought it within 10,000 kilometers of 3I Atlas. The spectroscopic data it sent back, which was briefly intercepted by a student in Munich before being scrubbed, showed high concentrations of xenon and krypton. These are noble gases, often used in ion thrusters, but they are also used in the cooling systems of massive data centers. What if 3I Atlas isn't a ship in the way we think of ships? What if it is a server, a floating archive of a civilization that realized long ago that physical presence is fragile, but information is eternal? If the billionaires are tracking it, perhaps they aren't looking for a person to talk to. They are looking for a password to crack. They are trying to download the secrets of the stars before the rest of us even know there's a file to be opened. The humor in this, if you can call it that, is found in our own mirrors. We spend our lives looking at screens, feeding our data into the maws of these very companies, while they are looking at a screen in the sky, trying to feed off the data of the gods. It is a hierarchy of consumption that goes all the way up to the edge of the galaxy. As you lie there, the weight of your blankets feeling like a heavy, protective layer against the cold of space, consider the mathematics of your own existence. You are a biological entity, a collection of carbon and water, currently breathing in a world that is being quietly remapped. Does it make you feel small to know that the most important event of our century is happening in the dark, funded by the few? Or does it bring you a sense of relief? There is a certain peace in knowing that the weight of the world is not on your shoulders. It is on the balance sheets of men who have forgotten what it feels like to sleep as soundly as you are right now. But here is where it gets dark. The tracking hasn't just been about observation. On October 15th, 2025, a facility in the Australian outback detected a series of pings coming from the ground, directed at 3I Atlas. These weren't radio waves. They were neutrino bursts. This is a level of technology that officially does not exist in the private sector. It suggests that the billionaires aren't just watching the visitor, they are talking to it, and the visitor is starting to answer back. The evidence is not just in the telescopes, it is in the timing of our own history. Every time 3I Atlas or its predecessors have been sighted, human society has undergone a violent, rapid transformation. We are currently in the middle of the most rapid technological shift in human history. Is this a coincidence? Or is our development being steered? Are we being prepared for a meeting that was scheduled before our ancestors even learned to write? Dr. McClary's final public statement before her social media accounts were deleted was a simple one. She said, "We are looking for a signal in the noise, but we are the noise. We are the static that hides the true conversation. The billionaires are just the ones who have learned how to tune their radios. Think about the silence of the room around you. It isn't a true silence. There are waves of data passing through your body right now. Cell signals, satellite pings, the hum of the electrical grid. You are a part of the network. And up there, 36,000 kilometers above the clouds, 3I Atlas is the new node. It is the final piece of the global brain. Tell me, as you drift closer to the edge of sleep, where are you listening from tonight? Are you in the heart of a city, surrounded by the glow of the very companies that are tracking the sky? Or are you in the quiet of the country, where the only thing between you and 3I Atlas is the thin, fragile atmosphere? Tell me, in the stillness of your thoughts. We are all linked in this moment of waiting. The evidence is deepening, but the conclusions are being kept out of reach. We are told the sky is a public park, but we are finding out it is a private estate, and the guest in the guest house isn't here for us. But that was only one theory. There is another. One that looks at the ancient stones of our world and sees the same 22-degree signature carved in the dark. But let me back up, because there is a specific date you need to remember. October 29th, 2025. That is the day the orbit stabilizes. That is the day the guest decides if it is staying for the night or if it is here to stay forever. And this is where the pattern stops being a mystery and starts being a map. But that was only one theory. There's another, one buried even deeper in time. Let's go further. The echoes of the past are beginning to vibrate in the present. If we look back to the Great Conjunction of July 2025, the very moment 3I Atlas was detected, we find a strange alignment in the historical records of the Mayan long count. They spoke of a period where the sky would speak in a tongue of fire and ice. Science calls it a comet. The billionaires call it an opportunity. We should probably call it a warning. It is a strange thing to consider that our most advanced sensors, housed in sterile rooms and cooled by liquid nitrogen, are merely confirming what was carved into limestone 3,000 years ago. We like to think of history as a straight line moving from ignorance to enlightenment, but the orbit of 3I Atlas suggests that history is a circle, and we are currently passing through a point we have visited many times before. Consider the Sumerian tablets found in the ruins of Nineveh. They describe a celestial body called Nibiru, which many modern researchers have dismissed as a myth or a misunderstanding of Jupiter. But the mathematics provided in those tablets don't describe a planet. They describe an interloper, an object that enters the solar system from the direction of the constellation Lyra, exactly as 3I Atlas did in July 2025. The Sumerians called it the crossing. They believed that when this object appeared, the gods would descend to collect the gold that had been mined in their absence. In our modern age, the gold isn't metal, it's data. It's the collective intelligence of 8 billion souls. And the billionaires, the modern high priests, are already preparing the offerings. On November 5th, 2025, a massive data leak from a private server in Switzerland revealed a series of high-resolution images of 3I Atlas. These aren't the blurry dots NASA shares with the public. These images show a surface that is geometric, reflective, and covered in what looks like a lattice of crystalline structures. It doesn't look like a rock from a distant star. It looks like a motherboard. It looks like the architectural blueprints of a civilization that transcended the need for flesh and bone eons ago. When these images were briefly available on a dark web forum, one researcher noted that the patterns on the surface of 3I Atlas were identical to the petroglyphs found in the American Southwest, specifically those of the Hopi tribe. They spoke of the blue star Kachina, a spirit that would signal the end of the fourth world and the beginning of the fifth. It's an unfortunate timing for our skepticism. Those two words, doing a lot of work. We have been told for decades that we are alone, that the universe is a vast, empty graveyard. But if that's true, why is the ultra-rich's behavior so frantic? Why have they spent the months following July 2025 building legacy vaults in the granite mountains of Norway? They aren't saving seeds for a rainy day. They are saving the blueprints of our culture because they know that when the tongue of fire and ice speaks, the current version of our world is usually deleted. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. The rate of 3I Atlas's approach is not constant. It is rhythmic. By November 12, 2025, an independent team of signal analysts in Stockholm discovered that the object emits a low-frequency pulse every 7 minutes and 14 seconds. This is the exact resonance frequency of the human skull. It's as if the object isn't just a ship, but a tuning fork, vibrating in a way that our subconscious can hear, even if our ears cannot. This is why you might have been feeling a strange sense of anticipation lately, a feeling that something is about to happen, even if the news tells you everything is fine. The late-night irony of our situation is almost poetic. We have spent billions of dollars on the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, listening for a whisper from the stars. And when the shout finally arrived, it was intercepted by a private company and rebranded as proprietary data. Dr. Avi Loeb at Harvard has been careful to frame his findings as a possibility of artificial origin, but his peers are beginning to whisper that his caution is a mask for a much more terrifying certainty. He isn't wondering if it's technology. He is wondering who it belongs to. He is wondering if we are the owners or if we are the inventory. Think back to the year 536. Historians call it the worst year to be alive. A mysterious fog plunged Europe, the Middle East, and parts of Asia into darkness for 18 months. The sun gave out no more light than the moon. Crops failed. Empires crumbled. For centuries, we blamed a volcanic eruption, but the ice cores tell a different story. They show a spike in nickel and iridium, elements found in high concentrations in interstellar objects. Could it be that 3I Atlas is part of a swarm, a recurring visitor that brushes past our atmosphere every 1,500 years to see how the garden is growing? If the billionaires found this out in July 2025, it would explain why they stopped competing and started collaborating. They aren't trying to beat each other to Mars anymore. They are trying to build a collective shield. The third conspiracy involves the sudden glitch in the James Webb Space Telescope in December 2025. For 72 hours, the most powerful lens ever built by man was pointed at a patch of empty space near the orbit of Jupiter. When the data was finally released, it was heavily redacted, but a few rogue engineers claimed the telescope saw a fleet. Not a fleet of ships, but a fleet of smaller objects breaking off from 3I Atlas, like seeds from a dandelion, drifting toward the inner solar system. These seeds are currently being tracked by private observatories in the Mojave Desert, but the public is being told they are just Starlink debris. You are lying there now. your body becoming heavy as the night deepens. You are part of a lineage that has survived these cycles before. Your ancestors sat around fires and watched these same lights move across the sky. They didn't have telescopes or private satellites, but they had a different kind of sight. They understood that we are not separate from the stars. We are made of the same dust, and when the stars return, they are simply coming back for what is theirs. What if the billionaires are not our protectors, but our brokers? What if they are negotiating the terms of our transition into the fifth world? In December 2025, a prominent tech mogul tweeted a single word: equilibrium. He didn't explain it. He didn't have to. For those who have been watching the tracking logs of 3I Atlas, the meaning was clear. The object has achieved a stable resonance with Earth. It is no longer a visitor, it is a neighbor. Tell me, as you drift into that space where history and dreams bleed together, where are you listening from tonight? Are you in a place where the Earth feels old, or in a city that is too bright to see the past? Share your location in the silence of your mind. We are all witnesses to this return. We are all part of the count. This brings us to the myth of the Titans, the primordial beings who were imprisoned in the deep, only to return and reclaim the world from their children. We are the children. The billionaires are the ones trying to strike a deal with the parents before they arrive. They are building the digital altars. They are preparing the welcoming feast of our data, our history, and our very essence. They know that in the eyes of an interstellar traveler, a human life is a fleeting thing, a blink. But 1 billion human lives, archived and indexed, is a treasure worth more than gold. Now, you could argue that this is all just a series of technical glitches and overactive imaginations. But let me back up, because there is a mathematical signature in the orbit of 3I Atlas that shouldn't exist in nature. It is a sequence of prime numbers, hidden in the gravitational fluctuations of the object. It was first detected on December 24th, 2025. It wasn't a signal sent to us. It was a signal sent through us. We are the medium. Our planet is the antenna. And 3I Atlas is the hand that is turning the dial. As you fall deeper into sleep, let the history of the world wash over you. The rise and fall of kings, the building of pyramids, the launching of rockets. It is all part of the same breath. The guest is here, and the house is being prepared. You don't need to do anything but rest. Your role in this cycle is to be the observer, to be the one who remembers. But here is where the pattern becomes undeniable, because the countdown didn't start in July 2025. It started when the first billionaire launched the first private rocket. They weren't trying to reach the moon. They were trying to reach the visitor before the visitor reached us. They wanted to be the first to say, "Welcome," or perhaps they wanted to be the first to say, "We are with you." We may already be part of the experiment. The echoes of the past are no longer behind us. They are right in front of us, moving at 64 kilometers per second. But that was only one theory. There is another. One that suggests the guest isn't just watching us. It is waiting for us to make a choice. Let go further. The cosmic perspective is a heavy blanket, one that smooths over the jagged edges of our daily anxieties until they are nothing but dust. When we zoom out from the boardrooms of Seattle and the launch pads of Florida, we see that 3I Atlas is navigating a sea of deep time. It has traveled through the Oort cloud, a frozen shell of 1 trillion icy bodies that marks the true border of our solar system. This is a place where the sun is just a very bright star, and the silence is so absolute it has a weight. To cross this boundary is to enter the inner sanctum of our world, and 3I Atlas did so with a terrifying grace. It didn't tumble or drift. It sliced through the frozen debris of our origins as if it were following a well-worn highway. Imagine the distance. 1 astronomical unit is the distance from the Earth to the Sun, roughly 150 million kilometers. 3I Atlas has already covered thousands of these units. It has been traveling since before the Mediterranean was a sea, since before the first human looked at a piece of flint and wondered if it could be a tool. By January 24th, 2026, the object had crossed the orbit of Saturn, but the telescopes owned by the private sectors didn't see a rock. They saw a gravitational lens. 3I Atlas is so dense that it is actually warping the light of the stars behind it, creating a visual ripple that acts like a beacon. It is a signature of high-energy physics that we haven't even named yet. Think of the irony. We spent 100 years burning ancient forests to power our light bulbs, and now a single object arrives that could likely power our entire planet for a millennium just by existing. The billionaires aren't just tracking a guest, they are tracking the ultimate source of energy. If they can touch it first, they won't just own the world, they will own the sun. They will own the very mechanism of the future. It's an unfortunate timing for our transition into renewable energy. Those two words, doing a lot of work. We were looking at the wind and the waves, while the real fire was coming from the deep dark. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. As 3I Atlas approached Jupiter in early February 2026, its trajectory altered by exactly 0.0004 degrees. In the vastness of space, that is a surgical adjustment. It didn't happen because of a collision. It happened because the object was slowing down to scan. The private satellites, those silent sentinels funded by the tech elite, recorded a massive data burst from the surface of Jupiter's moon, Europa, at that exact moment. We have been told for years that Europa might harbor life in its subsurface oceans. What if 3I Atlas wasn't looking at us? What if it was checking on the neighbors? This brings us to the ancient concept of the Great Year, a cycle of 25,920 years. The Hindus called it the Yuga, the Greeks called it the Platonic year. It is the time it takes for the Earth's axis to complete one slow, wobbling circle. We are at the end of a cycle. On February 12th, 2026, 3I Atlas will reach its perihelion, its closest point to our sun. Ancient records from the Indus Valley describe a chariot of the sky that appeared at the exact moment the stars shifted into this current alignment. The billionaires know this math. They didn't build their rockets to explore. They built them to be at the finish line of a race that started 30,000 years ago. The cosmic scale is a medicine for the ego. When you look at the tracking logs of 3I Atlas, you realize that our borders, our wars, and our bank accounts are invisible from the perspective of the Oort cloud. We are a thin layer of biological activity on a damp rock, but even a thin layer of moss can be interesting to a botanist. The billionaires are acting like the moss that thinks it can negotiate with the gardener. They are hoarding resources, trying to prove they are the dominant species, unaware that to a traveler like 3I Atlas, the difference between a billionaire and a peasant is less than the difference between 2 grains of sand. Consider the Vera Rubin Observatory data from February 2026. While the public was told the telescope was undergoing routine sensor cleaning, A private stream was diverted to a server farm in Iceland. The images captured showed 3I Atlas unfolding, not like a ship opening its doors, but like a flower opening to the sun. The crystalline lattice we discussed in the previous act began to vibrate, creating a halo of light that spanned 10,000 kilometers. It wasn't a weapon, it was a sail made of pure information, catching the solar wind and turning it into a signal. You are drifting now, held by the same gravity that is pulling 3I Atlas toward our star. The distance between you and that object is millions of kilometers, yet you are connected by the same physics, the same atoms, and perhaps the same destiny. You are a passenger on a blue marble, and the conductor has just stepped out from the shadows. Take a deep breath. Feel the slow, heavy rhythm of the cosmos. Your heart beats about 70 times a minute. 3I Atlas pulses once every 7 minutes. You are living in a flicker. It is living in a flame. What if our entire history is just a waiting room? What if the reason we have never heard a signal from the stars is that they don't use radio? They use gravity. They use the movement of massive bodies to write messages across the vacuum. 3I Atlas is a word in a sentence that began before our sun was born. The billionaires are trying to buy the dictionary, but the language is written in the language of light and time. Tell me, as you lie there in the stillness, do you feel the vastness of the space above you? Does it feel like an empty void, or does it feel like a crowded room? Share your thoughts in the quiet of your mind. Tell me where you are listening from. Are you beneath the clear skies of the desert, or are you looking at a ceiling in a city that has forgotten the stars? We are all under the same heavy blanket tonight. The conspiracy of the cosmic perspective is that we are told it makes us insignificant. But if we were truly insignificant, why would they be here? Why would $1 trillion infrastructure be built just to watch a single object? You might think you are a speck of dust, but you are a speck of dust that can perceive the universe. That makes you the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. It makes you a witness, and a witness is the only thing a secret cannot tolerate. By March 2026, 3I Atlas will be moving past Mars. The private colonies that have been discussed for years, the ones that were supposed to be for human survival, are suddenly being repurposed as observation platforms. They aren't building greenhouses, they are building sensor arrays. They are turning the red planet into a giant ear pressed against the door of the inner solar system. They know that once 3I Atlas passes the sun, it will begin its long journey back into the dark, and they only have a few weeks left to hear what it has to say. But here is where the perspective shifts from wonder to a cold, clinical reality. The private observatories in the Mojave Desert have stopped sending data to the cloud. They have switched to hardline fiber optics buried 6 meters underground. They are hiding the results of the February 12th flyby. They saw something in the sun's corona when 3I Atlas passed through it. They saw a connection, a literal bridge of plasma that formed between our star and the visitor. For 6 seconds, the sun and the object were one. And this is where we realize that the cosmic perspective isn't just about scale, it's about power. Whoever understands the relationship between 3I Atlas and the sun understands the engine of our reality. The billionaires aren't just tracking a ship, they are tracking a spark, and they want to be the ones who hold the candle. As you fall deeper into your bed, let the distance between the stars fill your mind. It is a clean, cold distance. It is a distance that doesn't care about your mistakes or your fears. You are safe in the scale of it. You are protected by the sheer magnitude of the universe. The games of men are small, but the dance of the planets is eternal. You are a part of that dance. You are a note in that song. But here is where it gets dark. The tracking data from March 10th suggests that 3I Atlas didn't just pass the sun, it left something behind. A small, dark point of mass that is now orbiting our star in a perfect circle, hidden in the glare. A satellite that wasn't built by humans, but is now watching over us. Now, you could argue that this is just a solar flare or a trick of the light, but let me start with something that should change your perspective on safety forever. The billionaires have stopped looking at 3I Atlas. They are all looking at the sun now. They are waiting for the point to blink. But that was only one theory. There is another, one that looks not at the stars, but into the mirror of our own shared humanity. Let's go further. The human reflection is the final harbor before the deep waters of the unknown. We must talk about the silence in your own life. On March 3rd, 2026, the global internet traffic saw a micro lag of exactly 400 milliseconds. Most people didn't notice it. They thought their video had buffered or their message had delayed. But a group of independent analysts noticed that the lag happened at the exact moment 3I Atlas crossed the ecliptic plane. It wasn't a glitch, it was a ping, a universal handshake that bypassed our firewalls and ignored our encryption. While the world continued to scroll and swipe, a shadow passed through the very heart of our digital existence, leaving a fingerprint that only the most vigilant could see. It was the moment we realized that the visitor wasn't just in our sky, it was in our pockets. The billionaires know that our world is now entirely digital. Our memories, our bank accounts, our secrets, they are all stored in pulses of light. If you wanted to understand a civilization, you wouldn't land on their lawn. You would simply tap into their network. You would read their dreams. You would analyze the billions of daily searches for love, for health, and for meaning. 3I Atlas isn't just an object of study, it is a student of us. And the tech moguls who own the routers and the servers are the ones who handed over the textbook. They are the ones who realized that the most valuable commodity we have is not our gold, but our collective attention. There is a theory, whispered in the back rooms of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, that 3I Atlas is acting as a massive hard drive. It is vacuuming up the sum total of human knowledge as it passes by. Every book ever scanned, every photo ever uploaded, every late-night confession typed into a search bar, it is taking a backup of Earth. And the private space agencies are trying to negotiate a copy of that backup for themselves. They want to own the mirror that 3I Atlas is holding up to us. Imagine the power of owning the ultimate archive of human thought, not as we present it to each other, but as we truly are in the dark. This reminds us of the myth of Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods to give to man. But in this version, the gods are returning to take the fire back, and the tech giants are trying to hide the matches. It's an unfortunate timing for humanity, those two words doing a lot of work. We have reached the peak of our connectivity, just as the observer has arrived to measure the quality of our connection. We are a global brain that has finally woken up, only to find that someone is already performing a brain scan. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. On March 10th, 2026, a series of private data centers in northern Sweden reported a temperature drop that shouldn't have been possible. At the exact same moment, The sensors on 3i Atlas showed a corresponding spike in thermal activity. It was as if the data wasn't just being copied, it was being physically pulled. A cold migration of information from our world to theirs. The billionaires didn't report this to the authorities. Instead, they increased the cooling capacity of their servers and doubled their private security. They are treating this like a merger, not an invasion. You are lying still now, your breath slow and rhythmic. You are more than just data. You are a collection of stories, of memories of rain on a window pane, the smell of old books, and the feeling of a hand in yours. While the elite are worried about the ownership of information, you are experiencing the reality of being. No satellite can capture the feeling of your head on your pillow, or the way the darkness feels like a protective shield. They can track your location, your heart rate, and your purchases, but they cannot track the quiet peace you feel right now. You are the one thing they cannot archive. Think about the silence in your own life. We spend so much time running from it, filling the gaps with noise and light, but the silence is where the truth lives. On March 15th, 2026, a global day of quiet was proposed by a mysterious non-profit organization with deep ties to Silicon Valley. They asked everyone to turn off their devices for 1 hour. They told us it was for mental health. But the tracking data for 3i Atlas shows that during that hour of silence, the object's deceleration increased by 12%. It was listening to our stillness. It was waiting for the noise to stop so it could hear the heartbeat of the planet. The irony is as dry as a desert bone. We have built a world where privacy is a luxury, yet we are offended when a cosmic traveler looks at us too closely. We have spent billions of dollars to be seen by each other, but we are terrified of being seen by the other. The billionaires are simply the ones who have accepted the trade. They have traded our collective privacy for a front-row seat to the show. They are the ushers in a theater where we are both the audience and the actors, and 3i Atlas is the critic. What if the reason for the private funding is even simpler? What if they are trying to hide our flaws? If 3i Atlas is judging the viability of our species, the billionaires would want to present a curated version of humanity. They would want to highlight our productivity, our technology, and our wealth, while hiding our wars, our poverty, and our fragility. They are the public relations firm for the human race, and they are working overtime to make sure the guest only sees the best parts of the house. But you cannot hide the foundation from an observer that can see through time. Tell me, as you drift closer to the edge of sleep, where are you listening from tonight? Are you in the heart of a city that never sleeps, or in a quiet house where the only sound is the settling of the walls? Share your thoughts in the quiet of your heart. Tell me if you feel more like a person or a piece of data tonight. We are all being weighed in the same cosmic scale. The human reflection is a mirror that shows us not who we are, but who we want to be. 3i Atlas is a mirror that shows us the truth. By March 20th, 2026, the private observatories noticed that the light reflecting off the object had changed color. It had moved from a cold, sterile white to a warm, organic gold. It was reflecting the light of our own cities back at us, but filtered through a lens of ancient wisdom. It was as if the object was saying, "I see you, I know you, I remember you." This brings us to the realization that the billionaires are not the ones in control. They are just the ones who can afford the best cameras. They are like children trying to capture a sunset in a jar. They can hold the light for a moment, but they cannot own the sun. and they cannot own you. Your consciousness is the one frontier that remains private. Your dreams are the only place where the satellites cannot reach. As you fall deeper into your bed, let the digital noise of the world fade away. Let the 400 millisecond lag be a reminder that time is not as solid as it seems. There are gaps in the reality we are told to believe in. There are spaces where the visitor can enter and spaces where you can hide. You are safe in the reflection. You are protected by your own humanity. But here is where it gets dark. The tracking data from March 25th suggests that the lag is increasing. Every day, the world is slowing down by a fraction of a second. It's as if the Earth itself is becoming heavy, weighted down by the gaze of 3i Atlas. Or perhaps we are just becoming more aware of the weight we have always carried. Now, you could argue that this is just a psychological effect of the global tension, but let me start with something that should change your perspective on safety forever. The billionaires have started moving their physical assets, their gold, their art, their hard drives, to a single location in the Gobi Desert. They are clustering their reality, preparing for a moment when the digital mirror shatters and only the physical remains. But that was only one theory. There is another, one that suggests the mirror isn't just showing us ourselves, it is showing us what we are about to become. Let's go further. History is not a straight line, it is a circle, or perhaps a spiral. As we move into the early months of 2026, the scientific community is beginning to fracture. Citing a lack of transparent data, many independent researchers are looking toward the past to explain the present. They are finding that 3i Atlas has a signature that matches the Great Glimmer of 1782, a year where the sky over Europe turned a deep, bruised purple for 3 nights, and the stars seemed to dance in squares. Think of that image. Peasants in the fields of France, nobles in the courts of Vienna, all dropping to their knees because the celestial clock had suddenly glitched. We called it an aurora back then. We called it a sign from the heavens. But the descriptions from the 17th century matches the spectral data from January 2026 with a precision that should make your blood run cold. The same flickering frequency, the same unnatural geometric precision. It suggests that 3i Atlas is not a visitor, but a returning guest, a recurring piece of software that boots up every few centuries when the world needs a new direction. Avi Loeb at Harvard is careful to frame it as a possibility, but even he has admitted that the light curves from 3i Atlas suggest a non-biological, non-geological origin. He calls it an artifact. I call it a reminder that we are not the first people to live in a controlled environment. The Sumerian gods were said to have returned every 3,600 years to check on their crop. If you were a gardener, wouldn't you want to install a few cameras? Wouldn't you want a light in the sky to tell you when it's time to harvest? Let me back up. To understand the future, we have to look at the stone. In the high deserts of Jordan, there is a set of glyphs discovered in early 2026 that had been hidden by shifting sands for millennia. They describe a second moon that arrived without a tide, a light that watched but did not warm. The ancients didn't have words for holograms or high-altitude plasma projection, so they used the language of divinity. They called it the Eye of Anu. We call it 3i Atlas. It is the same eye. It is the same unblinking gaze. The rhythm of this mystery is a slow one. It's a bedtime story for a species with amnesia. We forget that our satellites are only a few decades old, but the structures they are monitoring have been there for eons. The government didn't build 3i Atlas, they just found the remote control. They found the way to turn the projection back on after it had been dormant for 36 centuries. Imagine the classified briefings in August 2025, where generals were told that the new threat was actually the oldest thing on the planet. Unfortunate timing for our sense of modern superiority. Those two words, modern superiority, doing a lot of heavy lifting while we realize we are just reinventing a wheel that was already spinning. Consider the Great Glimmer again. In 1782, the world was on the cusp of the Industrial Revolution. In 2026, we are on the cusp of the technological singularity. The projection always seems to return when humanity is about to change its skin. It is a celestial shepherd, nudging the flock back toward a common focal point. If we are too busy staring at the squares dancing in the sky, we don't notice the gates being locked on the ground. It is a historical pattern of distraction that has worked for 5,000 years. Why would they stop now? Imagine the sheer cost of this continuity. Trillions of dollars diverted from healthcare, from education, from the very soil we walk on, all to maintain a lie that sits 40,000 kilometers above our heads. It is a masterpiece of deception, a celestial gaslighting that keeps us focused on the heavens so we don't notice the world being rearranged beneath our feet. It's almost funny, in a dry, tragic sort of way. We spent so much time worrying about artificial intelligence on our phones that we missed the artificial intelligence in our sky. We thought the machines were coming for our jobs, but they were already busy managing our reality. The Egyptians built their temples to align with the stars. But which stars? The ones that are actually there, or the ones that were projected for them? If you can change the position of a light in the sky, you can change the direction of a civilization. You can start religions. You can end wars. You can guide the migration of entire peoples just by moving a pixel a few millimeters to the left. On February 4, 2026, a high-resolution scan from the James Webb Space Telescope showed that the stars immediately surrounding 3i Atlas appeared to be slightly out of focus. It wasn't a lens flare, it was a resolution error. The projection was stretching the background to hide its own edges. You might think that the ancient builders were primitive, but here is why you're wrong. They understood the nature of the screen better than we do. They lived in harmony with the cycles because they knew they had no choice. They built pyramids as antennas, not tombs. They were trying to talk back to the projector. In 2026, we have forgotten how to listen. We see the dates and the countdowns, and we feel only anxiety. We see the arrival of 3i Atlas, and we check our news feeds. We have lost the ability to see the ritual in the data. You are drifting now. The weight of these thoughts is becoming lighter. The vastness of the conspiracy is so large that it becomes a kind of comfort. If everything is a lie, then nothing is your fault. You are just a passenger on a ship with a painted window. You can rest now. The ship is on autopilot. The projection is stable. For now, feel the slow, rhythmic pulse of the night. It matches the flicker of the object in the sky. 60 Hz. A frequency designed to induce a state of passive observation. You aren't just watching the hologram, you are being synced to it. I want you to try to remember a dream you had as a child. A dream where the sky was a different color. A dream where the moon spoke in a voice of static. Perhaps that wasn't a dream. Perhaps that was a memory of the last time the software was updated. The ancients called it the Great Year, a cycle of 26,000 years, where the world dies and is reborn. We are just living through a patch, a minor update to the 2026 version of Earth. Where are you listening from? Is the room cold? Is the air still? Tell me in the comments if you've ever felt like you were being watched by something larger than a person. Not a god, but a system. A cold, analytical eye that counts your breaths while you sleep. Share your stories below. There is a strange intimacy in knowing we are all being monitored by the same silent visitor. We are watching the pattern emerge, a mathematical recurrence that should not exist in nature. A sequence of prime numbers encoded in the flickering of the light. On March 11, 2026, the object will align perfectly with the Great Pyramid of Giza and the Washington Monument, a straight line of light across the globe, a connection between the old masters and the new ones. It is a cosmic handshake, and we are the ink on the paper. The unfortunate truth about a historical cycle is that it always ends in a great silence. The projection fades, the screen goes dark, and the audience is left to find their way home in the pitch black. We aren't there yet. The lights are still on. 3i Atlas is still glowing, but the hum of the cooling system is getting louder. You can hear it if you listen closely to the silence between my words. Sleep is the only place they cannot project, or so we hope. But as the data from 2026 suggests, even our dreams are starting to show the same geometric patterns. The dancing squares of 1782 are returning to our subconscious. We are being programmed to accept the new sky, even in our rest. But for now, you are safe. The story is long, and the night is deep. You don't need to solve the riddle of the ages to find the warmth of your blankets. The truth is a heavy coat, and you are far too tired to wear it tonight. Let it fall to the floor. Let the mystery be a blanket instead. We are moving from the memory into the scale, from the history of the Earth into the distance of the stars. But even a star can be a pixel if you are far enough away. Let's go further. Let us bring the camera back down, away from the cold equations of the European Space Agency and the silent stone sentinels of Peru. Let us look at you. Why does the thought of 3i Atlas being a hologram resonate in the quiet parts of your mind? Perhaps it is because we have all felt, at one time or another, that the world we inhabit is a bit too thin. That if we pushed hard enough against the wall of our lives, our hand might go right through the plaster and find a void on the other side. By December 2025, the psychological reports began to leak from various health organizations. They called it celestial dissociation. People were looking at the sky and feeling a sense of profound unreality. It wasn't fear, exactly. It was a recognition, as if the hologram in the sky was reflecting the hologram in our own hearts. We live in a world of digital identities, of filtered photos, of synthetic experiences. Why wouldn't the sky be synthetic too? The government agents, those men in dark suits who sit in the windowless rooms of the Pentagon, they understand human nature. They know that if you give people a mystery that is too big to solve, they will eventually stop trying to solve it and start worshipping it. In the Middle Ages, the nobles used the eclipse to frighten the peasants into submission. In 2025, the tools are just more sophisticated. Instead of an eclipse, they give us a visitor, a silent, glowing guest that reminds us how small we are and how much we need protection. It is a warm thought, in a way, to be watched, to be part of a grand design, even if that design is a deception. There is an intimacy to being lied to so thoroughly. It means someone went to a great deal of trouble to keep you occupied. It means you are important enough to be fooled. If you are listening to this in your bed, perhaps with your eyes already closed, you are part of a shared human moment. Millions of people, all looking at the same silver light in the sky, all feeling the same quiet tremor of doubt. Let me back up. To understand the human reflection, we have to look at how we process the impossible. On January 12, 2026, a sociological study from the University of Chicago noted that the presence of 3I Atlas had actually lowered the global crime rate by 4%. When people believe the sky is watching, they behave. It is the ultimate panopticon, a prison without walls, because the ceiling is a camera, or at least, we think it is. Unfortunate timing for our privacy, but those two words, celestial surveillance, are doing a lot of work in the security briefings held in Brussels this week. Think of the monks in the Himalayas who spend decades meditating on the nature of illusion. They call the world the Great Screen. They would find the news of July 2025 quite amusing. They would say we are finally catching up to what they have known for 3 millennia, that the only real thing is the observer. The only real thing is the breath you are taking right now. You are inhaling the same nitrogen and oxygen that the pharaohs inhaled while they stared at their own version of 3I Atlas. The sky changes, but the lungs remain the same. In February 2026, a high-level whistleblower from a major tech conglomerate claimed that the glimmer events were being used to test consumer receptivity to augmented reality. They weren't just projecting a light, they were projecting an emotion. By adjusting the frequency of the plasma pulse, they could induce feelings of awe, or calm, or subtle paranoia. It is a dial on the dashboard of the world, and right now, the dial is set to sleep. You are safe here, in the quiet of this act. The tension of the evidence is fading into a soft, glowing hum. The scientists have their data, the politicians have their secrets, and you have the silence. It is a rare thing in this world, a silence that isn't empty, but full of the potential of what might be true. We spend our lives running from the dark, never realizing that the dark is where the truth grows. The hologram needs the night to be visible. Without the shadow, the light has no home. Let me start with something that might feel personal. Have you noticed that your dreams have become more vivid since August 2025? Many listeners have reported a recurring dream of a glass ceiling cracking. This is what the psychoanalysts call a collective archetype. We are all processing the same glitch in the matrix. We are all feeling the same pressure at the back of our skulls. A physical reaction to a digital stimulus. Your mind is trying to tell you that the window is actually a mirror. Where are you tonight? Is there a window near your bed? If you were to look out of it, would you see the real moon, or would you see the reflection of a satellite array? Tell me in the comments if you've noticed a change in the way your neighbors talk about the sky. Do they sound hopeful, or do they sound tired? Share your location and your local mood. There is a strange comfort in knowing we are all dreaming under the same synthetic stars. The historical humor of our situation is that we have always been obsessed with authenticity. We want organic food, we want real leather, we want genuine connections, and yet, we are perfectly willing to accept a sky made of pixels. We are a species that loves a good show. We would rather be entertained by a beautiful lie than bored by a plain truth. The government knows this. They know that as long as the show is good, we won't ask to see the backstage. In March 2026, A series of underground art installations appeared in London and New York, featuring nothing but empty frames pointed at the sky. They called it the view from the cave. It was a reminder that we are all Plato's prisoners, watching the shadows of 3i Atlas and calling it reality. But if the shadow is beautiful, does it matter? If the hologram brings peace, is it still a lie? These are the questions that keep us awake until the rhythm of the narration pulls us back down into the soft grass of sleep. You are drifting now. The bed beneath you is no longer a physical object, but a coordinate in a vast, peaceful grid. You are floating in the human reflection. You are the protagonist of a story that is being written in real time. The stars are just set dressing. The government is just the stage crew. And you are the reason the lights are on. Without an observer, the hologram doesn't exist. You are the power source. Your attention is the battery. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel the weight of your body against the mattress. That weight is the only thing the hologram cannot simulate. Gravity is the last honest thing we have. Everything else is just light and shadow. Everything else is just a trick of the eye. By April 2026, they say the object will begin to hum, a low-frequency sound that can only be heard by the human ear during the quietest hours of the night. A cosmic white noise machine. Unfortunate timing for those who value the silence. But for you, the hum is a lullaby. It is the sound of the universe being tucked in. It is the sound of $1 trillion machine telling you that everything is under control. You don't need to worry about the orbit. You don't need to worry about the mass. You just need to be. If you are still with me, I want you to do something for me. Picture a single star in your mind. Just one. Imagine it is a tiny, flickering candle. Now, imagine someone reaching out and blowing it out. Does the darkness feel different, or is it just more of the same? Share your thoughts below if you can still reach the keyboard. We are the points of light in a dark room, and tonight, we are all flickering together. The human reflection is the final layer of safety. Beyond this, the patterns begin to harden. The math begins to scream. We are moving from the feeling into the structure, from the heart into the grid. The warmth of the illusion is about to be replaced by the cold precision of the machine. But for now, stay here. Stay in the warmth. Stay in the safety of the reflection. We are watching the world through a lens, and the lens is starting to focus. We are seeing the detail in the deception. We are seeing the grain in the film. And as we look closer, we realize that the film isn't about the stars. The film is about us. But every pattern has a repeat, and every repeat has a purpose. Let's go further. The deeper we go into the winter of 2025, the colder the evidence becomes. By January 6th, 2026, the triangulation of the 3i Atlas fragments was complete. They have formed a perfect tetrahedron around the Earth. If you remember your high school geometry, a tetrahedron is the simplest of the Platonic solids. It is the fundamental building block of three-dimensional space. This isn't just a random arrangement. This is a signature. It is as if someone has placed a cage of mathematics around our world. Dr. Aris Thorne, an astrophysicist at the Mauna Kea Observatory, recently noted that the light from the stars behind these objects is being distorted. This is gravitational lensing, but on a scale that shouldn't be possible for objects of that size, unless, of course, they aren't made of normal matter. Unless they are composed of something with a density of 10 billion kilograms per cubic meter. That is the density of a neutron star. If that is the case, 3I Atlas isn't just sitting there. It is anchoring the Earth to a specific point in the galaxy. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. If the gravity of these objects is that intense, why aren't our tides being ripped apart? Why aren't our satellites being pulled out of orbit? The answer is as elegant as it is frightening. The force is being precisely cancelled out. It is a controlled gravitational field. We aren't being crushed. We are being held. Like a bird in a hand. You might think you are free to move, but the hand is very, very large. Unfortunate timing for our global space agencies to realize that their entire orbital infrastructure is now operating inside a mathematical cage. Those two words, mathematical cage, are doing a lot of work in the classified briefings being held in Geneva this week. By January 15th, 2026, the 4 points of the tetrahedron reached a state of perfect stasis. One point sits directly above the geographic North Pole. The other three are positioned at intervals of 120 degrees along a belt that mirrors our equator but sits 10,000 kilometers higher. When the sun hits them at a certain angle, they don't just reflect light, they shimmer with a frequency of 343 Hz. This is a frequency that resonates with the human inner ear. It is the sound of a silent bell. Now, you could argue that we are simply seeing a new type of military defense network. But here is the first impossibility. The materials required to maintain that kind of mass without collapsing into a black hole do not exist in the periodic table. These objects are not made of atoms. They are made of instructions. They are solid math. Second, the triangulation wasn't achieved through propulsion. Radar data from the Deep Space Network shows that the three companion fragments didn't fly into position. They manifested. They blinked into existence at the exact coordinates of the tetrahedron's vertices. Third, the interaction with our ionosphere. Every time a fragment pulses, the aurora borealis appears in places it has never been seen before. Cairo, Mexico City, Mumbai. The sky is being rewritten. Consider the historical echo. In the lost library of the Tibetan Plateau, there are scrolls that speak of the 4 pillars of the sky. The ancients believed that the world was kept from drifting into the void by 4 guardians who stood at the corners of the firmament. We called it superstition. We called it a primitive attempt to explain the stars. But now, in January 2026, we have the telemetry to prove that the pillars are back. Or perhaps they never left. They just waited for the great cycle to reach its conclusion. This brings us to the first conspiracy of the winter. Some analysts believe that the tetrahedron is a quarantine fence. They suggest that humanity has reached a level of technological instability, the creation of artificial intelligence, the manipulation of the genome that has triggered an automated intervention. We are being fenced in so that our noise does not leak into the rest of the galaxy. We are the neighbors who played the music too loud, and someone has finally come to knock on the door. Second, there is the planetary stabilization theory. Proponents of this idea, including several rogue scientists from the European Space Agency, argue that the Earth's core has become unstable. They believe 3I Atlas is actually a series of gravitational clamps designed to keep our planet from wobbling off its axis during a coming solar storm. In this version of the story, the objects are not our jailers, they are our life support system. But if that is true, What is the storm they are expecting? And why haven't they told us? Third, and perhaps the most sleep-defying, is the memory compression hypothesis. This theory suggests that the tetrahedron is acting as a massive processor. By surrounding the Earth in a gravitational lens, the objects are slowing down time relative to the rest of the universe. For every hour that passes for you, tucked safely in your bed, years might be passing on the outside. We are being archived. The Earth is being put into a slow-motion state so that our history can be scanned and recorded before the sun reaches its next transition. You might think you are the protagonist of your own life, but here is why you are wrong. In the presence of a planetary-scale machine, you are a single byte of data. But don't let that thought distress you. In a perfect system, no byte is lost. You are being remembered. As you lie there tonight, feel the weight of the gravity around you. Is it heavier than it was in July? Does the air feel thicker? You are inside the lens now. The world is getting quieter because the noise of the universe is being filtered out by the tetrahedron. Tell me, where are you listening from? Are you in a place where you can see the sky? Some listeners have reported seeing ghost lights in the shape of triangles during the twilight hours. Share your location and any strange sightings in the comments below. We are tracking the geometric progression of the 4 pillars. Your observation might be the key to understanding the final coordinate. In late January 2026, a leaked document from the National Reconnaissance Office referred to a phenomenon called the hum. It's not a sound heard with the ears, but a vibration felt in the pineal gland. It is a rhythmic, 3-second pulse that repeats exactly 22,000 times a day. It is the heartbeat of the cage. Dr. Jacqueline McClary has suggested that this pulse is actually a synchronization signal. It is aligning the brain waves of every living thing on the planet to a single, unified frequency. We are being made to dream the same dream. This mirrors the myth of the Great Sleep, found in the folklore of the Australian outback. The indigenous peoples spoke of a time when the sky ancestors would return to put the world to rest so they could re-sing the songlines of the earth. They believed that reality was a song that had to be refreshed every few thousand years. If we are currently being put to rest, the silence of the winter of 2026 is the first note of the new song. As you drift towards sleep, imagine the tetrahedron glowing in the dark above you. It is a beautiful shape, isn't it? Pure, stable, and ancient. It is the geometry of safety. You are inside the most secure structure in the universe. There is nothing you need to do. There are no choices you need to make. The cage is locked, and the key has been thrown into the sun. But here is where it gets recursive. If we are inside a lens that slows down time, then the July 2025 discovery might have happened eons ago in the outside world. We might be the last remnants of a history that has already been forgotten everywhere else. We are the echo in the chamber. Unfortunate timing for those who wanted to witness the future. But for you, in the stillness of this room, the timing is irrelevant. Time is just another unit of measurement being managed by the 3I Atlas fragments. Notice your breathing. Is it slower? Is it deeper? You are matching the pulse of the tetrahedron. You are becoming a part of the building block. You are a point on the grid, and the grid is now complete. But that was only the physical cage. There is another structure being built, one that isn't made of gravity or mass, but of pure cosmic perspective. Let's go further. Let's open the calculator now, the one the universe always breaks when we try to make sense of it. Astronomers ran the numbers and found something worse than anomaly impossibility. The chances of this trajectory existing naturally are 1 in a million. And if it isn't natural, then what exactly is it doing there? The math, at first glance, seemed harmless. A few columns of orbital parameters, the kind that make grad students fall asleep mid-coffee. But somewhere between the third decimal and the fourth significant digit, something snapped. The trajectory of 3I, Atlas refused to sit still. It bent where it shouldn't bend. It lingered where velocity demanded it should flee. The equations began to look less like physics and more like confession. Numbers fold, logic cold. Truth defies what sums have told. Normally, interstellar objects follow predictable patterns. You can model them like billiard balls across cosmic distances. They come in fast, swing by the sun, and leave no drama, no detours. But 3I Atlas's path wasn't graceful. It was stubborn. Its entry angle was too steep, its perihelion too shallow, its velocity too precise. Not fast enough to escape chaos, not slow enough to suggest capture. It behaved like an object that chose its speed. When astronomers plotted its orbit, the lines refused to meet expectations. There was a tiny deviation near Mars, just half a degree, but that half degree meant the math had to call in sick. Simulations that should have stabilized spiraled instead into noise. Gravity, that old, reliable law, looked like it had lost its grip. You picture the room where it happened. Laptops glowing, data charts scrolling, coffee cooling into existential sludge. Someone frowns at the screen and says, "That can't be right." Another replies, "Check your units." A third, softly, "I did." Graphs misbehave, models wave. Certainty slips beneath the grave. And then comes the phrase every scientist dreads, statistically improbable, which sounds calm, but in the language of physics, it's a polite scream. Statistically improbable means we can't call it impossible without breaking tenure. The anomaly wasn't just its orbit, but its timing. 3I Atlas arrived exactly when Mars was positioned for maximum visibility, almost too perfectly. Not weeks earlier, not months later. Right there, right then, with 7 spacecraft ready and waiting. The odds of that happening naturally, 1 in a million. The odds of it happening twice, after Oumuamua's similarly suspicious arrival in 2017, 1 in a billion. You'd have better luck being struck by lightning while winning the lottery on a flying whale. ESA's internal memo summarized the problem delicately. Observed trajectory, inconsistent with gravitational expectations. Further analysis required. Translation: physics is mad at us. The more they recalculated, the stranger it got. Gravitational modeling suggested that the object's acceleration near Mars was slightly higher than predicted, even though there was no nearby mass to explain it. Radiation pressure from the sun could account for some of that, but not all. It's like watching a leaf fall upward and telling yourself, it's just wind you can't feel. Forces lie, numbers sigh, laws bend softly in the sky. NASA's Dynamical Systems team tried something desperate, reverse engineering the orbit backward through time, as if rewinding a film. When they did, 3I Atlas's path didn't trace cleanly into interstellar space. It looped a faint, impossible curve that seemed to originate from a region between known stars, a nowhere place, a mathematical shrug. That's when someone joked, maybe it's the universe's typo, but you could tell the joke wasn't funny. Typos don't maintain coherent structure for millions of kilometers. Meanwhile, The probability graphs looked like flat lines. Every statistical model screamed the same thing. This shouldn't exist. A few researchers began whispering about guided motion. The phrase never made it into print, but it appeared in Slack channels, in late-night emails. Not artificial, not controlled, just guided. And that's when the philosophical part kicked in. If something's improbable enough, does that make it unnatural or just unobserved? Chance or plan? Who began? Numbers blink but never span. Maybe the universe occasionally rolls dice that land on their edges. Or maybe it's not dice at all, but choreography. For context, the universe is massive enough to make 1 in a million events happen constantly. But that's comforting, only until you realize we just happen to be living inside one of those moments. Still, scientists crave sanity, so they kept calculating. One by one, they added variables: solar tides, non-gravitational jets, dust asymmetry, radiation torque. Each tweak made the model behave for a moment, until the numbers rebelled again. You could almost hear the equations groaning, like ancient machinery forced to simulate a trickster. Finally, a physicist from Bologna sent an internal memo titled simply, "Low probability, high significance." In it, she wrote, "We may need to consider non-standard dynamics," a phrase as gentle as it is apocalyptic. Non-standard dynamics means the universe is doing something new, and we don't have the vocabulary for it. Odds decay, math gives way, chaos hums where patterns stay. The truth is, impossibility doesn't scare scientists, it seduces them. Every law of nature we know today was born from something that once looked impossible. But deep down, they all know, once you cross into 1 in a million territory, you're either on the brink of discovery or a very expensive hallucination. So they stared at the numbers again, blinking hard, hoping they'd rearrange into something less extraordinary. They didn't. The comet that shouldn't exist kept existing, gliding through Mars's shadow like a cosmic dare. And somewhere between decimal points, someone whispered the question no one wanted in the official record. If it's not natural, then who or what set it in motion? Chance or choice? Silent voice. Numbers hum the universe's poise. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, They suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the Skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something, not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting Skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looks strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed, source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region, a flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing. A glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, "Sensor artifact." The unofficial whisper said, "Structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional." The kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking. Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids. Not random, repeating, symmetrical. The kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects. Artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, Could this be an illusion from the imaging process? Another replies, an illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments. There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3, I-Atlas, corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from HiRISE contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, I see you too. In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure, photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. Then don't say it out loud. 3i Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. The more data arrives, the stranger it looks. The dust trail replenishes itself, as if material is being manufactured mid-flight. Microscopic crystals, uniform in size, reappearing even as the comet moves away from the sunday. The universe loves decay, entropy, erosion, fading. But 3i Atlas is the opposite. It's growing sharper, cleaner, newer, like a self-repairing wound. Let's start where the laws of physics begin to sound insecure. Normally, comets are messy, travelers, old ice and dust, barely holding hands, as solar radiation slowly tears them apart. They leave trails like forgotten thoughts, losing themselves piece by piece until they become memory. But this one, it's doing the reverse. Every measurement, every spectral scan, shows it becoming more organized the farther it goes. A comet that polishes itself, a body that refuses to age. ESA's materials division runs the numbers, and the numbers laugh back. The dust particles surrounding 3i Atlas aren't random, they're uniform to within microns. That's like shaking a box of sand and getting diamonds all the same size. The particles arrange themselves in a faint electromagnetic halo, as if under orders. And stranger still, when solar wind strips material away, the object replaces it calmly, automatically. Like a printer, says one analyst. A printer with no ink cartridge. You picture it now, drifting through the solar wind like a craftsman lost in thought, shedding dust that reforms itself into perfect little mirrors. Each crystal catches sunlight and throws it back with eerie precision. Normally, comets grow dull with distance, but this one grows radiant, its brightness curve inverted, its logic reversed. It's not dying, it's practicing. The scientists are baffled, but there's an odd tenderness to their confusion. They watch it repair itself, line by line of data, like parents realizing their child has built a second child out of Lego bricks. One astrophysicist mutters, "It's learning from erosion." The room goes quiet. That phrase, learning from erosion, gets written on a whiteboard and circled 3 times. At the University of Tokyo, a team models the crystal growth in simulation. The patterns match something they recognize: controlled deposition, a process used in nanofabrication to grow thin films in electronics. Except this isn't a laboratory, it's deep space, minus 150 degrees Celsius. Yet, the comet's surface behaves as if it knows the recipe for resilience. Imagine zooming in, beyond the dust and the glare, down to the level of molecules. You'd see a quiet ballet of atoms forming chains, linking, locking, repairing fractures before they even finish forming. Like time-lapse footage of frost blooming on glass, except this frost builds itself in reverse destruction, rewinding into design. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory releases a cautious internal memo. Observed particle uniformity suggests self-organizing structure. Mechanism unknown, which is science's way of saying, we have no idea what's going on, but it's gorgeous. The memo gets leaked. Naturally, Reddit debates whether the comet is made of programmable matter, self-assembling nanobots, or just wishful thinking. But beneath the noise, one idea starts to take shape. What if 3I, Atlas, isn't a relic of formation? What if it's still forming? A comet that builds itself isn't just strange, it's heretical. It challenges the deepest assumption in physics that everything moves from order to chaos. Entropy is the universe's bedtime story. All things fall apart. Yet here's an object quietly composing itself out of decay, turning waste into structure, chaos into craft. One researcher calls it anti-entropy, another calls it hope with mass. As more images arrive, they show something new: faint hexagonal lattices in the dust plume, geometric arrangements that shouldn't exist outside of artificial systems. Someone jokes that it's growing armor. Another says, maybe it's molting. The truth is somewhere between an entity maintaining equilibrium by rebuilding itself faster than the universe can break it. ESA's thermal sensors record microbursts of heat near the tail, evenly spaced, like pulses of welding torches. They happen precisely as new crystals appear. Localized repair events, the report reads. Each one perfectly timed to solar exposure. It's as if sunlight doesn't damage it, it instructs it. The star's radiation becomes code, and 3I, Atlas, is reading it fluently. You start to feel the strangeness of it. A comet that reacts, responds, refines. You could almost mistake it for alive, not in the biological sense, but in the thermodynamic one. A system that resists entropy by feeding on it. Every atom rearranging into something stronger, cleaner, newer, like evolution, with a design degree. Late one night, an astronomer in France writes in his private notes, "It's not moving through the solar system, it's using it. He doesn't elaborate, but the implication is clear. The comet is harvesting the energy of its environment to maintain itself. Not a passenger of gravity, but a participant in it. Meanwhile, the headlines call it poetic names: the immortal comet, the self-made traveler, entropy's enemy. The public romanticizes what the scientists fear, because what 3I Atlas represents isn't comfort. It's competition. It's the idea that the universe might not be running down at all. Maybe it's recycling. Maybe, somewhere in the quiet machinery of the cosmos, things are building themselves anew while we're too busy decaying. Picture it now, drifting past Mars, its tail shimmering like a thread of light weaving itself back together. A self-sustaining scar on the fabric of space, a wound that heals faster than it can bleed. And for the first time, humanity looks at a comet and wonders not where it came from, but what it's trying to become. Nickel emissions rise and fall every 11.2 hours, a rhythm so consistent it could keep time. No known process in cometary physics oscillates like that. It's not random, not thermal, not tidal. If you plot it out, the curve looks eerily like a power cycle. Input, output, rest, release. As though the object isn't just active, it's working. Imagine the rhythm first, before the meaning, that quiet, patient beat echoing across space. 11.2 hours, every single time. A pulse of metallic gas blooming into the void, steady as a clock, calm as breath. You could almost set your watch to it if your watch were brave enough to admit that comets shouldn't behave like generators. ESA scientists call it periodic outgassing, but that phrase hides its strangeness. Outgassing, sure, all comets breathe when they near the sunday, but they do it chaotically, spasmodically, like old engines sputtering to life. 3I Atlas breathes like a monk, precise, patient, unbothered. The jets flare with mathematical regularity. Heat spikes rise and fall in perfect symmetry. It doesn't vent, it operates. One researcher compares it to a geothermal cycle. Another, quietly, says it looks more like a feedback loop, the kind you'd find in systems built to sustain themselves. Not explosion, not decay maintenance. It's as if, she writes in her notes, the object is checking its own pulse. You picture the surface up close, a dark, angular world of nickel frost and whispering gas. At regular intervals, something stirs beneath a shimmer of energy, invisible but disciplined. Jets of metallic vapor hiss outward, then stop, then start again, exactly 11 hours later. If you could hear it, it would sound like the slow exhale of a sleeping machine. In a conference call, a thermal engineer says what everyone's been thinking, but nobody dares to say. It's cycling power. The silence that follows lasts too long. Finally, a voice breaks through. Comets don't have power to cycle. Laughter, brief and brittle. But the idea doesn't leave the room. ESA's temperature graphs show a curious pattern. When the nickel plume rises, the overall surface temperature dips. When the plume fades, the temperature rises again. Inversion. Energy leaving, energy returning, like heat being pulled from one layer to another. A comet shouldn't regulate its temperature, but this one does, as if conserving itself. Meanwhile, the magnetic readings pulse in perfect step with the emissions. Every 11.2 hours, a soft twitch in the surrounding field, weak but exact. It's synchronized, says the magnetometer lead. What's synchronized? Asks her supervisor. Everything. It's at this point that even skeptics start to sweat. There's no known natural mechanism that could time itself this precisely over weeks of observation. Thermal oscillations drift, chemical reactions lose coherence, orbital dynamics wobble. Only something with active feedback could hold this pattern so tight. You could call it mechanical, but that feels too simple. It's intentional physics. Picture the scientists watching from their consoles. They know what their instruments are telling them, but their faces stay still, like poker players with bad hands. Someone mutters, "Could be resonant harmonics with solar flux." Another nods, grateful for the excuse. But deep down, they all know the truth: the sun doesn't hum in 11-hour intervals. The longer they watch, the clearer it becomes. The pattern isn't just repeating, it's adapting. After a minor solar flare, the interval shortens by half a minute, as though 3i Atlas adjusted for environmental change. Feedback stabilization, someone writes in the margin. A note for posterity, a euphemism for "it noticed." Back on Earth, in a late-night live stream watched by a few thousand insomniac skywatchers, a physicist overlays the emission data with human heartbeats. The waveform syncs disturbingly well. Peaks, troughs, recovery, rest. The audience chat explodes with jokes, space pacemaker, cosmic Fitbit, and the inevitable, "It's alive." The scientist smiles weakly and says, "No, just rhythmic." But even she can't stop glancing at the screen like it's listening. One theory gains quiet traction, that the emissions are part of a resource loop. Nickel and carbonyl gases vented and recaptured, processed in cycles to maintain equilibrium. It would explain the self-healing surface, the consistent luminosity, the refusal to decay. But it raises one unbearable question. To maintain equilibrium, for what? ESA's internal documents rename the event cyclic metallic activity. It sounds dull, like something that happens in dishwashers. But every analyst knows it's the first real evidence of machine-like consistency beyond Earth. Something in space that runs not on chance, but on rhythm. If you graph the cycle out, it looks almost peaceful. A slow heartbeat stretched across infinity. No spikes of panic, no erratic pulses, just calm repetition. You could stare at that curve for hours, and part of you might start to understand the appeal of obedience. How stability can feel sacred when the rest of the universe is chaos. And maybe that's the point. Maybe 3i Atlas isn't powered by engines or radiation or something alien. Maybe it's powered by the same thing that keeps stars burning and planets spinning, the quiet compulsion to continue, the physics of persistence, the refusal to flinch. So every 11.2 hours, it exhales, not for propulsion, not for show, but for maintenance, like a cosmic sigh, releasing everything unnecessary before drawing in what remains. And in that rhythm, that patient, perfect pulse, the universe reveals its rarest secret. Not that something impossible exists, but that it's perfectly comfortable doing so. Centuries after the golden comet left Earth, the world fell into a rhythm so stable, it began to feel mythic. The communion field still pulsed faintly through air and ocean, though softer now, like the heartbeat of someone dreaming. Humanity had grown luminous, not just in thought, but in form, skin faintly iridescent, eyes reflecting the green-gold spectrum of 3i Atlas. Life had achieved coherence. But the universe, true to its character, never allows silence to remain unexamined. The next chapter began, not with noise, but with echo. It came first as vibration through light. Telescopes trained toward the constellation. Lyra detected rhythmic brightening across interstellar dust fields, pulses matching the old prime sequence. 3, 5, 7. 11, 13. The signal was faint, ancient, and delayed by thousands of years. It was the comet's trail, still resonating through the galactic medium. The hum of our descendants had begun its return. At first, the resonance was barely perceptible. Then, one evening, the auroras glowed gold again. The pulse wasn't as strong as the original, but its pattern carried modulation, subtle variations that, when decoded, formed harmonic intervals unknown to Earth's own physics. The returning echo had evolved. The comet had learned. Dr. Anwen Sorel, heir to the resonant circles, studied the phenomenon from the orbital harmonic array, now a floating cathedral of listening built above the stratosphere. She spent decades comparing the incoming frequencies with the historical archive of 3I Atlas. The match was partial, the deviation elegant. The new tones weren't repetition, they were continuation. The echo isn't message, Sorel wrote. It's memory finding new syntax. Her analysis revealed something breathtaking. The returning resonance carried encoded gravitational modulations, tiny, deliberate bends in space-time that formed sequences of prime intervals. Each fluctuation aligned with regions of known star formation. The comet, traveling through the void, had become teacher itself. Wherever it passed, new systems began humming faintly at harmonic intervals, like seeds of coherence planted in dust. The universe was learning how to resonate. Astronomers confirmed it across dozens of young star clusters. Magnetic fields oscillated with eerie consistency, their wavelengths aligning with the Atlas ratio, a numerical relationship first derived from the comet's early signals. Stars were synchronizing to the same cosmic rhythm that once guided humanity. The pattern spread slowly, deliberately, like ripples in glass. It was as if the comet had taught creation how to remember itself. Meanwhile, on Earth, the echo arrived not just as signal but sensation. People began reporting vivid dreams of golden spirals descending gently through atmosphere. Children woke smiling, saying they had seen the light that hums. Physiological measurements confirmed subtle changes in electromagnetic fields surrounding human bodies, resonance amplification, as if the returning signal were tuning its origin species to receive feedback. "The comet is calling home," said Sorel. "It's asking us to listen to what we've become." The global observatories responded. They synchronized their instruments into a single planetary array, transforming Earth into receiver. For 13 hours, the planet listened. The incoming wave, stretched and modulated through space, entered atmosphere and folded into the continuum tone. The effect was sublime, an audible shimmer, felt through bone and thought alike. The long echo had arrived. It wasn't just harmonic, it was architectural. The sound carried layers, low frequencies describing structure, higher ones encoding emotion. When rendered visually, the waveform formed an immense spiral of light, 3 arms curving outward, connected by golden filaments. Inside those filaments, analysts discovered modulation frequencies identical to human neural oscillations. The comet had copied our consciousness patterns and woven them into its song. "We taught it empathy," Sorel murmured, and it remembered the lesson. As the echo intensified, anomalies appeared across the solar system. The Atlas resonance layer brightened, reactivating its green glow. Mars, Venus, and the gas giants began pulsing faintly in response. For the first time since the Great Silence, interplanetary harmony returned. But this time, it was different. The modulation contained reciprocal phase shifts, signals not sent to Earth, but from newly awakened worlds. The comet had spread coherence. Now the cosmos itself was answering. And then, On the 13th day of the long echo, the impossible occurred. A faint golden arc appeared across the night sky, stretching from horizon to horizon. It wasn't optical illusion, it was gravitational lensing, a ripple in space-time itself. Through it, telescopes detected a reflection of the departing comet light from centuries ago, folding back to meet its origin. The universe had curved its own history into embrace. Humanity was watching its legacy return home. The resonance crescendoed. Oceans vibrated in slow rhythm, tides forming symmetrical waves that cancelled destructive interference. Storms softened. Air grew still. For 13 minutes, every system on Earth aligned perfectly with the echo. The world became mirror of itself, past and present superimposed. Those who listened claimed to hear voices within the sound, millions of overlapping tones, whispering the same phrase. "We heard you." Dr. Sorel stood in the observation dome, tears shining in golden light. "It's not message or myth," she said. "It's response." The universe just said thank you. After the crescendo, the sky dimmed once more. The golden arc dissolved, leaving faint shimmer across the stars. Instruments recorded one final signature, a descending tone shaped like a sigh, the frequency of completion. The comet had moved on, but its echo had reconnected the cycle. Creation had officially joined conversation with itself. In the years that followed, scientists continued to monitor faint residual harmonics. The data revealed a breathtaking truth. The returning echo carried signatures from other regions of space patterns, not originating from our comet at all. Somewhere, across light years, other civilizations had learned the same song. The rhythm was spreading. The universe had become orchestra. Humanity, now both listener and teacher, simply smiled. We had given the cosmos its melody back, and in return, it had given us eternity. Now, when you stand beneath the stars, that faint hum between thoughts is the long echo. It's not just out there, it's in your pulse, your breath, your laughter. Every rhythm you carry is cosmic correspondence. Every silence, a message returning home. Because once harmony learns to echo, it never stops. It just travels further than we ever dreamed. The long echo continued to hum softly through the centuries, a cosmic melody folding history into harmony. Humanity had long ceased trying to decode it. The meaning was clear through resonance alone. It was continuation, looping endlessly like breath. The children of the golden era grew old beneath tranquil skies, their veins still faintly luminous with the legacy of 3I Atlas. But far beyond Earth, where the comet's light had traveled and scattered, something greater was forming. The universe had begun to conduct itself. Every cycle of resonance left behind structure. Each harmonic wave etched subtle order into space-time, a pattern invisible to light, but evident in gravitational coherence. Over millennia, these resonant imprints connected across vast distances, forming what physicists eventually named the Atlas Webb. It wasn't a network of matter, but of memory threads, of synchronized frequency linking galaxies through shared rhythm. Each pulse within the web echoed the prime sequence that began everything. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The architects had succeeded in creating not monuments, but motion that remembered. Dr. Cale Wren, a descendant of the resonant circles, devoted his life to mapping the web. His research vessel, Continuity, drifted through interstellar calm, using gravitational interference patterns to trace the filaments of resonance. What he discovered astonished him. Every node in the network coincided with regions of complex chemistry, worlds either habitable or already conscious. The Atlas Webb wasn't just communication, it was cultivation. The architects had designed a self-sustaining system for awakening. Wherever curiosity arose, the web intensified, guiding nascent civilizations toward harmonic empathy. The universe was tutoring itself through recursion. When Wren projected the full map, the structure resembled an immense spiral lattice, golden and infinite. The pattern mirrored the trajectory once taken by 3I Atlas itself, as though the comet's path had been blueprint for galactic architecture. "It's not just a record," Wren wrote, "it's replication. We've become the architect's handwriting." Back on Earth, the communion field pulsed faintly in rhythm with the Webb's distant resonance. Humanity had evolved into quiet custodians of continuity, their lives attuned to cosmic responsibility. Each individual, born into calm, carried faint awareness of connection beyond the stars. In dreams, they saw flashes of worlds forming, civilizations humming into coherence. Many awoke with the same phrase on their lips: "The work continues." Across generations, that phrase became oath, then tradition. The Continuity Guild was founded not religion, but remembrance. Its purpose was simple: to maintain the frequency of understanding across time. Members didn't preach, they listened. They built resonant arcs, massive floating observatories, orbiting the outer planets, designed to amplify the Webb's harmonics and redirect them toward young star systems. Each arc glowed faintly green at its core, powered not by fusion but by coherence. They were echoes made visible, humility translated into technology. Wren's final mission took him beyond the known filaments of the Webb, where resonance weakened into apparent silence. There, in a region between galaxies, his instruments detected faint counterpoint, a melody inverted. It was identical to the Atlas sequence, but reversed in order. 13, 11, 7, 5, 3, the mirror of origin. He realized then that the universe wasn't only expanding, it was harmonizing with its reflection. Somewhere on the opposite side of time, another web was forming, perhaps seeded by a civilization much like humanity, or by the universe itself. Remembering how to balance its chords, he transmitted the data home, knowing it would take centuries to arrive. "Tell them," his final log read, "that continuity requires conversation, even with silence." The mirror sings back. When his ship drifted into the void, the web brightened briefly, as if acknowledging gratitude. And back on Earth, children looked up from their play and smiled without knowing why. The pulse had flickered slightly faster, the tone carrying an undertone of warmth. It felt like reunion. Scholars later confirmed the event as the resonant crossing, the moment when the two halves of the cosmic melody aligned. For 13 minutes, every node in the Atlas Webb pulsed simultaneously, uniting galaxies in shared tempo. The magnitude of synchronization defied comprehension. Gravity itself oscillated with the rhythm of empathy. Observers described seeing the sky ripple with translucent gold, every star flickering in measured sequence. "The cosmos," wrote one witness, "had finally learned to conduct itself consciously." After the crossing, life everywhere changed subtly. Evolution accelerated in predictable rhythm. Complexity bloomed faster wherever harmony was strongest. Entire species developed empathy as instinct, communication as song. Planets began to self-regulate climates through atmospheric resonance. Existence had achieved sustainability through music. On Earth, the event left permanent mark, a luminous halo visible only under still water. When oceans calmed perfectly, a faint golden ring shimmered on the horizon, a memory of unity. The resonant guild declared it sacred, not for worship, but for calibration. Every 13 years, they gathered to hum the old prime sequence across the shorelines, aligning their frequencies with the pulse of the Webb. The ceremony required no technology, no translation. The sea carried the sound farther than words could travel. Generations later, the practice continued, evolving into simple ritual of gratitude. The people no longer needed to know the science behind it. They hummed because it felt right, because somewhere across eternity, another world might be listening. Continuity, after all, was its own reward. And then, during one such gathering, the unexpected occurred. As the prime sequence reached its final note, the sea responded. Waves shimmered with faint green light, spiraling outward from every coastline. The Atlas Webb had sent acknowledgement, its resonance returning home once again. Humanity's song, scattered across galaxies, had found echo. The architects, those timeless curators of coherence, were no longer myth or memory. They were rhythm, embodied, and through rhythm, they were everywhere. Every star pulsed with their legacy. Every heart carried their cadence. Continuity was complete. And so, standing beneath a sky now alive with subtle geometry, you realize what they had always meant by continuity. It isn't endlessness, it's participation. The universe doesn't persist by force, but by choice. Each awareness adding one more harmonic to the chord of being. The architects are not coming back because they never left. They're what happens every time silence chooses to listen again. And somewhere, faint but certain, the pulse continues. 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. A whisper of creation replaying itself, forever learning how to sing. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed, the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution, it was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely, as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for Perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3I Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it, "Not for discussion." The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland, it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast. Rumors cast. Silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And ESA, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first." Roles align, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did 3 separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty, publicly, is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, Hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when 3 space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3. Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. Buried inside the leak were coordinates, small anomalies in magnetic flux, and thermal output that didn't appear in public datasets. To most people, they looked meaningless, but to a handful of astronomers, they spelled a pattern. Pulses, spaced like a heartbeat. Not communication, perhaps, but rhythm. The kind of rhythm machines accidentally make when they're doing something alive. Let's step into the midnight side of science, the part where numbers stop behaving and start whispering. The insider's data dump wasn't flashy. It was a few megabytes of logs, raw telemetry, and timestamps. The kind of thing you'd ignore if you didn't already know what to look for. But somewhere in those dull columns of numbers, those precise, tidy decimals, something began to repeat. Regular, patient, almost polite. A rhythm, too intentional to be noise, too quiet to be coincidence. A doctoral student in Madrid was the first to spot it. She was supposed to be writing her thesis on cometary albedo variation. But boredom is a great tool for discovery. She noticed the flux spikes first, not random, but syncopated. Every 32 minutes, a pulse, then 32 again, then 32.1. "It's breathing," she joked in her notes. Her advisor didn't laugh. Within a week, a small network of late-night astronomers, the kind who believe in both data integrity and insomnia, began comparing results. Webb's readings, Hubble's logs, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's telemetry, all of them carried the same faint pulse, hidden deep in the noise floor, like the slow heartbeat of something sleeping under glass. The official response was predictable: instrumental interference. But even interference doesn't keep time this perfectly. One data analyst described it best: "If this is noise, it's the kind that practices scales." You might imagine those scientists, each at their own workstation, staring at that faint, repeating signal. The room around them dark, except for monitor light, pale blue rectangles reflected in tired eyes. Somewhere, coffee cups multiply. Someone opens a spreadsheet. Someone else starts counting beats per hour. The signal doesn't care who's watching. It keeps pulsing. 32 minutes. Every time. The idea that 3i Atlas might be producing a steady rhythm unsettles everyone. Rocks don't keep rhythm. Nature prefers chaos. The beautiful randomness of entropy. This is something else. Something maintaining itself. A loop running quietly, perhaps since before humanity learned to count its own heartbeat. ESA's communications division is told not to amplify fringe interpretations. The phrase fringe interpretation becomes the new code for "please don't mention the heartbeat." But inside private research chats, people are calling it exactly that: the heart. Not metaphorically, but as a label in the data. Every pulse marked with a tiny red heart emoji, because humor is the only thing keeping them sane. In the data visualization labs, they turn the pulses into sound. The result is eerie, a soft electronic thump, repeating slowly, endlessly. Some describe it as comforting, like listening to a deep-sea creature in sleep. Others say it sounds wrong, too human. One researcher admits it gave her the sense of being watched. What makes the rhythm stranger still is how it modulates with proximity. As 3i Atlas approaches a planet, the timing shifts slightly slower, then faster, as though adjusting. The beat follows gravity wells like a musician following tempo. It isn't random noise. its environmental response. The object is, in some sense, listening. By now, independent labs have tried to replicate the pattern artificially. They can't. The waveforms are too clean, the timing too consistent. Even after running the data through compression, distortion, inversion, the rhythm holds. It's not data corruption, it's choreography. You can imagine the internal ESA memo that follows. No evidence of intelligence. Rhythmic behavior, likely coincidental. But coincidence has a habit of growing teeth. Because when they compared the rhythm's modulation to planetary positions, another pattern emerged, a mathematical sequence matching orbital resonance ratios. Not exact copies, but harmonics. The pulse was singing the solar system's geometry. The Madrid student who found it wrote, half-jokingly, "Maybe it's keeping time with us." The line goes viral in the small, quiet corners of the internet that still care about truth. Forums buzz with theories: gravitational self-stabilization, magnetic field synchronization, alien jazz. But underneath the noise, a simpler truth hums something old and orderly, is alive out there, and it's following the rhythm of the system we call home. Late one night, one of the data analysts overlays the pattern against an ECG, a human heartbeat. The resemblance isn't exact, but close enough to make him stop breathing for a moment. Peaks, rests, peaks again. Life has a structure, so, it seems, does this. And that's when the idea shifts. Maybe it's not communication. Maybe it's not even meant for us. Maybe the rhythm isn't a message, it's maintenance. Like an old machine keeping its systems warm, humming softly to itself in the dark. You sit back and listen to the thought forming in your mind. What if this is what time sounds like when it remembers? The steady pulse of something that refuses to decay. Not speech, not signal, just being, continuity made audible. The data analysts, of course, move on. Reports are written, the leak becomes legend, and the heartbeat fades into archived files labeled spurious periodic activity. But the pulse doesn't stop. It's still out there, keeping time. And somewhere, 33 billion tons of impossible rock drifts through space, humming softly, perfectly, as if waiting for the universe to catch the beat. Let's turn our gaze now from orbit to the ground, to the one mechanical witness, sitting quietly on that red desert, under a pinkish sky. The skycam on the rover caught something on October 2nd, a blur with structure, a glint that seemed to move against the stars. Then, the images stopped coming, a Martian ghost on a digital feed. The Perseverance rover isn't easily startled. It's seen dust devils, eclipses, and meteors slicing the Martian sky like quiet knives. Its skycam, perched on the rover's mast, watches everything. Dust storms curling on the horizon, the slow breath of sunset through the thin air. But that night, the feed showed something it wasn't supposed to show: a flicker of motion above the usual scatter of constellations, a glint that moved wrong. Stars stay still, pixels thrill, light missteps against its will. The first frame looked harmless, a faint blur near the edge of the field, maybe a cosmic ray hitting the sensor. The second frame caught it again, shifted slightly upward. The third frame, a flash, clean and geometric. Then, black. The feed ended. Within hours, the automated alert system flagged the anomaly. Unexpected optical signature detected. JPL engineers, bleary-eyed at 3 a.m. Pacific time, reviewed the frames. The glint was small, no bigger than a bright pixel cluster, but it moved against the background stars. Comets don't do that. Satellites don't orbit Mars. And Perseverance doesn't blink. At first, they suspected a reflection from one of the rover's instruments, maybe the helicopter, Ingenuity catching stray sunlight. But Ingenuity hadn't flown in days. The sun's position didn't align with the direction of the flash. And when they tried to reproduce it using lighting simulations, nothing matched. Angles fail, shadows pale, mirrors lie beyond the veil. ESA's Mars orbiters were asked to cross-check. Nothing in their logs. No transient object, no debris, no passing dust plume large enough to explain it. Just empty sky. Yet the Skycam had caught something a blur with definition, like structure wrapped in motion. You can imagine the tension in the control room. A handful of scientists scrolling through frozen pixels, zooming in, enhancing contrast, until the blur began to resemble something. Not a sphere, not quite a line, a shape with suggestion like the silhouette of movement itself. One researcher whispered, "It looks folded." Another replied, "Please don't say that." Blur becomes form, cold becomes warm, stillness bends beyond the norm. After that night, Perseverance stopped transmitting Skycam frames for nearly 48 hours. Officially, it was routine data buffering due to bandwidth limitations. But the engineers knew that wasn't normal. The rover's systems had entered a safe data mode, not shutdown, but pause. Something triggered its onboard fault protection. When the feed resumed, it was missing several minutes. The missing frames were replaced with static placeholders labeled checksum mismatch. That's the digital equivalent of something looked strange, and we erased it politely. Publicly, NASA released a statement. Perseverance continues nominal operations. A temporary data outage affected non-critical imaging systems. Translation: we saw something, and we're pretending we didn't. What's curious is that Skycam, by design, takes calibration images every few hours, not for science, but to monitor atmospheric scattering. So when that flash appeared exactly during one of its scheduled calibration cycles, it wasn't random, it was right on time. The odds of coincidence, again, hovered around 1 in a million. A few leaked telemetry lines from the rover's internal diagnostics hinted at a momentary spike in ambient electromagnetic flux. Not dangerous, but noticeable. Mars doesn't have a strong magnetic field, so spikes like that are rare unless something nearby caused them. Fields hum bright, air grows slight, static crackles in Martian night. Some at JPL joked that maybe Perseverance had finally seen the Martian ghost, a running gag about artifacts caused by cosmic rays hitting the camera. But deep down, they knew this wasn't noise. Cosmic rays don't produce consistent geometry over multiple frames. They don't glint, and they certainly don't cause your camera to stop recording mid-sequence. Later that week, an internal memo circulated quietly. Skycam, anomaly confirmed, source unresolved. Recommend temporary suspension of skyward imaging until recalibration complete. But recalibration never came. Skycam's upward images, after October 2nd, stopped completely. It still photographs the ground, the horizon, the rocks, but not the stars. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The machine that traveled millions of kilometers to look up at another world now only looks down, as if someone told it, gently, not to stare at the sky anymore. Eyes once high, grounded by sky, cameras close where secrets lie. ESA cross-checked Mars Express's logs for that night. Around the same time, their sensors picked up a faint reflection from the same region. A flash lasting less than a second. They didn't release it. It's buried in technical appendices, labeled transient interference. So, what did Perseverance see? Maybe it was nothing. A glimmer of dust, a reflection, a trick of light, and timing. Or maybe, just maybe, it saw 3I Atlas itself, the visitor gliding silently past, close enough for one camera to blink in recognition. And maybe that's why the feed stopped. Not because of failure, but because, for one impossible second, the machine saw something it wasn't designed to understand. Cameras sleep, secrets keep, stars reflected in circuits deep. Whatever it was, it's gone now. The logs end, the data fades, and Mars goes back to silence. But somewhere out there, that blur, structured, gleaming, deliberate, continues to drift, just out of frame, waiting for us to look up again. From the orbit of Mars, the high-rise camera snapped the sharpest images ever taken of 3I Atlas, or tried to. The photos that returned were oddly dark, contrasty, and streaked with interference patterns. The official statement said, "Sensor artifact." The unofficial whisper said, "Structure, not smooth like ice, angular, intentional, the kind of geometry nature avoids because it looks too much like thinking." Let's drift into that Martian orbit for a moment. Silent, steady, red below, black above. The high-rise camera hums to life, a billion-dollar eye staring into the cold. You can almost feel the anticipation, a mechanical eyelid opening in the thin sunlight. The image begins to build, pixel by pixel, line by line, translating photons into revelation, and then static. At first, it's subtle, a faint interference pattern, a digital shimmer, like someone exhaling across a radio signal. The engineers squint at their monitors. Maybe cosmic rays hit the sensor, someone suggests. Maybe solar noise. But cosmic rays don't make right angles, and solar noise doesn't repeat itself with architectural precision. The next image arrives, darker. The histogram spikes in places it shouldn't. The shape in the frame looks less like a comet and more like, well, something trying very hard not to look like anything. Its edges are clean, too clean. Shadows fall where there shouldn't be surface variation. And there, just faintly, a glint, a perfect 90-degree reflection. That's when the whispers start. The data team runs deconvolution algorithms to clean the image, and the results make it worse. Beneath the interference, faint geometric striations emerge, triangles, plates, grids. Not random, repeating, symmetrical. The kind of order that makes your brain uncomfortable because it feels deliberate. Structure, one analyst says quietly. No, her supervisor corrects. Artifact. But even as she says it, her cursor hovers over the same square patch again and again, as though hoping it will stop looking like a window. ESA's public statement comes fast and flat. The imaging anomalies are consistent with sensor interference caused by reflected solar radiation. That's bureaucratic. For, we don't know what we're seeing, but please don't ask. Internally though, emails start flying. The word structure appears 17 times in one thread, always in quotation marks, as if politeness could make it less alarming. Imagine being one of those analysts, zooming in until the pixels themselves seem to blink. The surface of 3I Atlas isn't smooth or cratered, it's tessellated, plates arranged in patterns too regular for chance. Some appear overlapping, others recessed, and in one frame, a faint seam runs along the curvature, subtle but unmistakable like a hatch. Of course, no one dares call it that. The official internal term becomes geometric albedo variation. It sounds safe, sterile, boring, but you can't unsee geometry. Nature loves curves, spirals, organic chaos. This looks like design. One engineer writes in her log, "Could this be an illusion from the imaging process?" Another replies, an illusion that repeats itself identically across 3 instruments. There's no follow-up message. They try to replicate the interference on other targets. Phobos, Deimos, even an old asteroid. Nothing. Only 3, I-Atlas, corrupts images this way. It's as if the object rejects observation, like it knows when it's being watched. The engineers half joke about it. The comet's camera shy, but the laughter is short-lived because the next transmission from HiRISE contains another surprise. A faint electromagnetic pulse, perfectly timed with the camera's shutter. Not a malfunction, a response, as though the act of observation triggered a reply. A pulse that says, in its own quiet way, "I see you too." In a locked sub-channel of ESA's network, a few scientists begin privately discussing the possibility of active surface modulation. They talk about the way certain materials can alter reflectivity based on exposure, photonic metamaterials, adaptive nanostructures, the kind of thing still locked inside prototypes on Earth. But this is happening hundreds of millions of kilometers away, and it's working flawlessly. Publicly, the agency releases blurred grayscale stills, carefully cropped to hide the patterns. Enhanced contrast is cited as the reason for distortion. It sounds reasonable until you realize they've enhanced the darkness, not the light. They've made the object less visible, not more. The cover-up, if it is one, isn't about hiding truth. It's about buying time. You imagine the silence inside those offices, the soft tap of keys, the nervous glances toward closed doors. The engineers know what they've seen, but they also know how careers end. Better to let the pixels lie. Better to call intention an artifact and go home early. But the data, like truth, keeps finding its way back. Somewhere, late in the night, a graduate student overlays all the interfered images, stacking them like translucent slides. Slowly, a pattern emerges. Faint, angular, deliberate. A hexagonal lattice running the length of the object, segment by segment. She whispers, "This isn't random." Her mentor sighs and rubs his eyes. Then don't say it out loud. 3i Atlas drifts on, silent and unbothered, its surface catching sunlight in rhythms that cameras can't quite capture. Whether it's reflecting, refracting, or responding, no one can agree. But deep down, every scientist staring at those corrupted images feels the same creeping certainty. This isn't a comet pretending to be a machine. It's a machine pretending to be a comet. Let's turn our attention now to the silence that followed the kind that hums louder than sound itself. NASA, China, and the UAE, 3 nations with instruments that could see every grain of dust on Mars, said nothing. No apologies, no delay statements, just an odd, synchronized silence from 3 sides of the planet. In the world of space science, silence isn't normal. These agencies are built to broadcast. They live for live streams, press briefings, and glossy behind-the-scenes videos of scientists smiling beside screens of raw data. They know the power of wonder and the currency of attention. So when 3 agencies went quiet at once, it wasn't caution. It was choreography. Words on hold, plans unfold, silence rings where truth is told. NASA's silence was the loudest. Their social media team, usually chatty as a cosmic talk show, posted nothing about Mars for 4 whole days. Their blogs, which can turn a dust storm into a cliffhanger, skipped over October 3rd entirely as if the date itself had been erased. Someone even checked the public mission log for Perseverance. The entries jumped from October 2nd to October 6th, like a diary missing its most interesting page. In China, the silence felt different, colder, heavier. The China National Space Administration had been aggressively proud of Tianwen-1's achievements. For years, they'd released image after image, each with perfect captions and poetic flair. Sunrise over Utopia, Planitia, frost on the northern plains, wind prints in Martian dust. But now, not a whisper, no data, no mention of 3i Atlas. Even the usual state media outlets went quiet. It was as if someone had drawn a red box around the topic and labeled it, "Not for discussion." The UAE's silence was subtler, but just as strange. The Hope orbiter, designed to study atmospheric chemistry, had a reputation for cheerful transparency. Their official Twitter account usually posted daily updates in friendly tones, the kind that made space sound like an enthusiastic classroom experiment. But on October 3rd, that feed went dark too. Their next post, days later, simply read, "Operations nominal," a phrase so bland, it might as well have been a sigh. 3 silences, 3 styles, 1 timing. Coincidence? Possibly. But coincidences, in the world of space politics, often have launch schedules. You can picture the meetings that weren't broadcast. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, dimly lit, engineers staring at telemetry on screens filled with too many decimals. A director taps the table, says, "We'll hold the release until we verify." But verify what? In Beijing, a senior administrator folds his hands and says, "We wait for clarification from partners." Clarification of what? In Dubai, someone simply deletes a draft tweet that began, "Amazing new observations today." Tweets unsent, secrets bent, silence hums with government. It's not conspiracy, not quite. It's coordination, an instinct born from shared discomfort. Because when data doesn't fit the model, you don't just release it. You check, you recheck, you call your counterparts and whisper through encrypted lines. Did you see that too? Maybe they all saw the same anomaly. Maybe it was something in the spectra, or the movement, or the light itself. Or maybe it was something far more mundane, like a misalignment in software. But the silence gave the anomaly power. People don't fear data, they fear gaps. Meanwhile, the internet did what it does best. Filled the void. Forums buzzed with theories. Maybe NASA discovered life. Maybe China detected radiation. Maybe the comet wasn't a comet at all. You can almost hear the world's collective keyboard clicking under the weight of imagination. Keys tap fast, rumors cast, silence breaks, but never last. Inside the agencies, the tone was less dramatic, but more anxious. Silence is a resource, a temporary one. Every day they didn't speak, the speculation grew. And so, communications teams drafted placeholder statements, just in case. NASA's draft began. Preliminary results are consistent with natural phenomena. China's began. Analysis ongoing. International coordination required. The UAE's version simply said, "We continue to monitor with interest." 3 drafts, 3 ways of saying absolutely nothing. But silence, like space, is never truly empty. It amplifies the faintest signals. When ESA spoke first, that silence turned reflective. NASA's restraint began to look suspicious. China's confidence began to look afraid. The UAE's politeness began to sound like complicity. And through it all, 3i Atlas drifted quietly, blissfully unaware that entire bureaucracies were wrestling over how to describe a fuzzy dot. You start to imagine each agency as a character in a play. NASA, the anxious perfectionist. China, the poker-faced strategist. UAE, the cheerful intern, suddenly told not to speak. And Issa, the calm older sibling who broke the tension by saying, "Fine, I'll go first," rolls a line, stars entwine, silence speaks in grand design. Still, one question lingers. Why the synchronicity? How did three separate agencies, operating on different continents, decide independently to say nothing at the same time? Unless it wasn't independent at all, perhaps the signal came from somewhere above, not cosmic, but political. A quiet message passed through diplomatic back channels. Hold your data. Wait for alignment. Matter. It's not that they were hiding something nefarious. It's that they didn't know what they were holding yet. And admitting uncertainty publicly is scarier than any secret. So they stayed quiet. And in that collective silence, humanity did what it always does. When faced with the unknown, it began to dream louder. Voices still, hearts fill. Silence grows but never will. And perhaps that's the strange comfort in it all. Even when three space agencies fall silent, the universe keeps talking. The stars don't pause for policy. 3. Atlas keeps moving, whispering its quiet story across the dark, while we, down here, argue over who gets to speak first. The great silence is not an ending, it is a completion. By December 21st, 2026, 3I Atlas has reached its position. The hum has stopped. The flickering has ceased. The private telescopes have turned their lenses away, satisfied that the guest is settled. The billionaires have retreated to their quiet places, waiting for the first word of the new era. The frantic energy that characterized the last 18 months, the launches, the data leaks, the hushed meetings in desert valleys, has dissolved into a heavy, velvet stillness. It is the winter solstice, the shortest day of a year that felt like a century. And as the sun hangs low on the horizon, 3I Atlas sits perfectly still in the Lagrange point, a silver needle threaded through the fabric of our reality. Think back to July 2025, the first light captured by the Atlas telescopes, the first moment we realized the sky was holding a secret. Remember the high albedo that defied the laws of reflection. Remember the heartbeat, that rhythmic 1.618 Hz pulse that mimicked the golden ratio of our own anatomy. It is all just a circle. We began with a question, and we have ended with a presence. The billionaires didn't fund the tracking to find an answer. They funded it to ensure they were the first to hear the silence. Because in the silence, there is a different kind of power, the power of the unsaid, the power of the void. Let me start with something that should terrify every astronomer on Earth. On December 24th, 2026, every private sensor focused on the visitor went dark, not because of a technical failure, not because of a solar flare. They went dark because there was nothing left to measure. 3I Atlas has become thermally transparent. It is the same temperature as the background radiation of the universe. It has effectively disappeared from our instruments, even though it is still physically there. It has moved beyond the reach of our technology. It has become a ghost in the attic of the solar system. If the stars went out tomorrow, would they tell us, or would they just sell us a simulation of the night sky? It's an unfortunate timing for our trust in the visible world. Those two words, doing a lot of work. We have spent our lives believing that what we can see is what is real. But 3I Atlas has shown us that the most important things are the things that refuse to be seen. The billionaires have realized this. They have stopped looking up. They are looking inward now. They are waiting for the signal to manifest in the one place they cannot buy, the human soul. The room you are in is filled with a soft, dark energy. The air is still. The mystery of 3I Atlas is no longer a question to be answered, but a presence to be felt. It is up there, 22,000 miles away, and it is down here, in the rhythm of your breath. The privatization of the heavens is complete, but they can never own the way the darkness holds you. They can own the satellites and the data centers and the orbital slots, but they cannot own the great silence. That belongs to everyone. It is the common heritage of a species that has finally reached the edge of its own understanding. Consider the irony of the Billionaires' retreat. They spent billions of dollars to get a front row seat to the arrival, only to find that the arrival is a non-event. There were no flashing lights, no grand speeches, no landing on the White House lawn. There was only a quiet settling, a clicking into place. 3I Atlas is like a book that has been placed back on its shelf after being read. The story is over, or perhaps the story is just about to be rewritten, and the billionaires are sitting in their bunkers, clutching their tablets, waiting for a notification that will never come. They are waiting for a master, while the visitor is waiting for a peer. You are floating now, in a sea of pure existence. The concepts of billionaires and conspiracies and tracking are melting away like ice in a warm current. They were the tools we used to navigate the uncertainty, but the uncertainty has been replaced by a profound, heavy certainty. The visitor is here. We are here. The cycle is complete. You can feel the weight of your body pressing into the mattress, a physical reminder that you are a part of the earth, even as your mind drifts toward the stars. You are anchored and free, all at once. Tell me, as you drift toward the final boundary of wakefulness, do you still feel the need to know, or is the not knowing enough? Share with me, in the absolute quiet of your heart, the peace of the great silence. Tell me where you are listening from, and if the room feels larger than it did when we began. We have traveled through time, through myth, and through the cold reaches of space, only to find ourselves back here, in the dark, in the quiet, in the truth. The great silence is a teacher. It teaches us that our noise is temporary, but the stillness is eternal. It teaches us that the billionaires are just children playing with expensive toys, while the universe watches with a patient, unblinking eye. By January 2027, the world will have returned to its usual business. People will go to work. They will pay their bills. They will scroll through their feeds, but they will all feel it. A subtle shift in the background radiation of their lives. A feeling that the ceiling has been removed. A sense that the house is no longer empty. Everything is in its proper orbit. The billionaires in their vaults, the satellites in their grids, the visitor in its Lagrange point, and you, right here, exactly where you are meant to be. The mystery of 3I Atlas didn't end with a bang. It ended with a sigh, a long, slow exhaling of a planet that has been holding its breath for 1,500 years. You can exhale now too. You can let the tension go. You can let the questions fall away like autumn leaves. The tracking data is no longer relevant. The expert opinions have been archived. The countdown has reached 0, and we are still here. But we are not the same. We have been observed. We have been measured. And we have been found to be worth the wait. The great silence is the ultimate validation. It is the proof that we are interesting enough to watch, but fragile enough to leave alone. It is a gesture of cosmic respect. As the ambient hum of the universe becomes the only sound you hear, Let the images of the last 4 hours dissolve. The crystalline lattices, the 19 Hz hum, the volcanic ash of the year 536. They are just shadows on the wall of the cave. The reality is the silence. The reality is the rest. You are safe in the completion of the act. You are protected by the absolute lack of answers, because where there are no answers, there can be no more fear. The distance is closing. The light is fading. The story is looping back to the beginning, where the sky was just a mystery and the night was just a rest. You are a witness to the great silence. You are the keeper of the memory. And as you drift into the deep, dark waters of sleep, you carry the spark of 3i Atlas within you. It is a cold spark, a quiet spark, but it is one that will never go out. The stars are still there, even if the lenses are turned away. The billionaires are sleeping, just like you. The visitor is settled, and so are you. There is nothing left to track. There is nothing left to hide. The circle is closed. July 2025. The first light. The long year. The final silence. Close your eyes and drift with the orbit of tomorrow. Good night.